Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about buying a second-hand van and why at the moment does it seem to be so difficult to get hold of a second-hand van and why the prices gone absolutely through the roof. As you all know, I'm looking for another vehicle to do a budget van conversion, but I've been finding it extremely difficult to find the right donor vehicle for this next van build. At the moment, there's very slim pickings on the market. Those that are out there are galactic mileage, beaten to death, or just ridiculous prices. In some cases, at least double the price that they would normally be. What's the reason for that? Why have we got this problem at the moment? Let's discuss it. Okay, so first of all, there's been a global shortage of materials for the production of new vehicles. In particular, things like semiconductors have been very short supply, rubber and even sheet materials like metal. And that's resulted in a massive shortage of new vehicles that would normally come onto the market. So take, for instance, the figures of September 2020. There was something like 51,000 new vehicles on the market in September of that year. And compare that to September last year, 2021, there was only something like 29,000 vehicles available on the market. So something like a 40% less, reduction in new vehicles being available. And those would be typically taken up by your big fleet companies, Amazon, people like that, that operate massive fleets, DPD, all your big courier companies. They would have a regular process of swapping their vehicles over. Some of them usually every 3 years. In the first 3 years that it's under warranty, they would normally go around the clock by them because of the mileage that they're doing. So they'd want to get rid of those vehicles and get more new vehicles in. Obviously, with the shortage, those vehicles haven't been available. So their only option is to hang on to the aging fleet that they've currently got, which means that those second-hand vehicles that they would normally get rid of have not gone onto the second-hand market. So consequently, the 20,000 or so that they were short new vehicles has resulted in 20,000 second-hand vehicles short going onto the second-hand market. So initially, that's why at the moment there aren't so many available. That is one of the major reasons why. And then another reason, due to the current climate and the current situation, obviously for the last couple of years, we've all been in various states of lockdown. We haven't been able to go out. Shops and services have been closed. And this has resulted in people that are forced to stay at home have had to get produce and stuff and materials and products supplied to their house, delivered to their house. So this has meant that all your courier companies have needed to massively ramp up their services to provide a home delivery service and extra deliveries to businesses as well. So all your courier companies have been forced into buying what was left on the market in terms of second-hand vehicles, to give them the vehicles to provide this service to us while we've been stuck at home. So the little vans that are on the second-hand market, a lot of those have now been snapped up by all your delivery people for them to provide the service that we've needed because of the current situation. So again, that's also had a massive impact on what's available to buy out there currently at the moment. And then lastly, the final thing that has impacted it as well is the Clean Air Acts that we're now being introduced into major cities in the UK. And this may be relevant across the world, obviously with climate change and things like that. We've now got clean air zones in London, Birmingham, I think Manchester will follow, and various other large cities. You're not allowed to drive a vehicle that's not got a Euro 6 modern, fuel efficient and clean engine. You're not allowed to drive those vehicles within those major built up areas. So again, your parcel delivery and courier companies and companies that rely on delivering goods and services into those areas are being forced to modernise their fleet and buy Euro 6 engine vehicles. And if those vehicles haven't been available new on the market like they would be, then they've had to scrabble around and obtain all the Euro 6 vehicles that are on the second-hand market. Again, another reason why there's a massive shortage at the moment of vehicles. So it's been a huge impact in these last couple of years. There's been less new vehicles on the market. We've needed all these home delivery services. Couriers have been having to ramp up their services massively, and the clean air zones because of climate change. And these three factors have meant that what's left on the second-hand market is very, very slim pickings. As I said before, you've got vehicles that have got really super high mileage. I've seen vehicles up to 200, 300, even 500,000 miles on the clock, on the second-hand market. And because of the demand, everybody's taken advantage of that situation and hiked the prices up. I know it seems wrong, but it's sale and demand. It's a classic situation where if you've got the demand, you can put the prices up and people will still pay it. They have to pay it because they need those services. So consequently, van prices have absolutely skyrocketed and they've gone through the roof. So how has this affected the vehicles that are currently on the market? Okay, so trade buyers are currently experiencing an 80% increase in prices than they were in this same time in 2019. So only a couple of years ago, the prices of second-hand vans would have been 80% cheaper than what they are now. Nearly double, that's an incredible increase. The price of second-hand vans is somewhere between 60 to 100% more than what it was 2 years ago. So if you'd have spent, say, £4,000 on a second-hand van, people are now asking £7,000 to £8,000 for the very same vehicle 2 years later. If you'd have bought a vehicle a couple of years ago, more than likely you could sell it again now with 2 years older and more miles on it for more money than you bought it 2 years ago. That's the crazy situation that we're in. Typically, major fleet owners that would swap their vehicles around for new vehicles coming onto the market, a second-hand vehicle coming out of a fleet system would typically be 60 months old and have around 70,000 miles on the clock. Now, because they're having to hang on to those vehicles, typically what we're seeing is the vehicles are now 3 to 4 years old and in excess of 100,000 miles on the clock. So what I've done is I've just scoured the internet. I've had a look at currently what's available on various different platforms, eBay, Auto Trader, all the usual places, Marketplace, etc. And I've just picked a selection of vehicles to show you the sort of thing that I'm looking at and what I'm currently facing. Okay, as we run through these vehicles, what I'll do is I'll put some screenshot images of the vehicle that I'm looking at, some photographs up on the screen so you can see it a bit more clearly other than me just holding up some images here which you won't be able to see. But the first vehicle that I'm looking at is a Fiat Ducato. It's a 2012 on a 62 ridge. It's a long wheelbase, L3H3, so long wheelbase version of the Ducato and the high roof. This is ideally what I'm looking for. And this vehicle currently has 158,000 miles on the clock. So as I say, a little bit more than what I'm looking for, but this is what's on the market now. People are hanging on to them a bit longer, so what's coming onto the market has got higher mileage. Now, the Parker's trade price for this, which is a price guide that you would normally go for, the trade price on this vehicle would normally be £4,190. That is what you could expect to pay for a vehicle in this condition. But it's currently on the market for £7,995. That is just a smidgen under double the price that this van should be selling for. Okay, the next example, another Fiat Ducato. This one's a little bit younger, 2 years younger. It's a 2014 reg. Again, it's the long wheelbase L3H2. It's the same as the previous van that we were looking at. This one's got slightly less mileage on it as well. So it's 110,000 miles. So with it being 2 years younger and slightly less mileage, you'd expect to pay a little bit more for this. So the Parker's trade price on this vehicle would be £5,790. That's what we would expect to pay. But this vehicle is currently being listed and being sold for £8,995 plus the VAT. So add the VAT onto that if you're a private buyer, and that's £10,794. Again, an increase of £5,000 over its Parker's trade price. Again, nearly double the price. And lastly, I just picked one of the examples that I'm finding as well. You know, these vehicles are old, battered or high mileage. This is a 64 plate Fiat Ducato. Again, same vehicle, long wheelbase, high roof. This is the type of vehicle ideally that I want to do my conversion on. So this is really what I've been focusing my attention on. Now this vehicle has got 298,000 miles on the clock. It's nearly a third of a million miles. So this one's really been round the ringer, as it were. And I think you can tell by the photographs as well, I don't think there's a panel on this vehicle which hasn't got a dent in it or is beaten. There's trim missing. The inside's in a really poor state. The seats are terrible. You know, it's seen that mileage, definitely, and it's in a rough condition. Now, the Parker's trade price on this would be £2,500, but not in this condition. I mean, this van is battered to death. But yet it's still on the market for 2,295. So it's still holding its Parker's trade price despite the really high mileage and the terrible condition of the van. So yeah, it just goes to show you. And it's not one that I'll be looking for. And lastly, what I want to talk to you about is obviously with the increase in demand, unfortunately, you're also going to get the increase in scammers and people trying to scam you out of your hard-earned money because they know people are desperate to buy vehicles at the moment. And there's a couple of examples of that. A couple of followers, Rich and Alice, messaged me and sent me an advert that was on Marketplace for a van and said, oh, I thought you might be interested in this, please have a look. And on the surface, the vehicle looked absolutely fantastic. It was a Mercedes Sprinter similar to mine. It looked as if it was in very, very good condition. It hadn't done very high mileage. The photos looked amazing and the price was really good. It was up for about £4,000. Now, in the current climate, that rang a couple of alarm bells with me. A, it was a really good van, really good condition. Why is it only being sold for £4,000? So I did a little bit of digging. I tried contacting the seller. They didn't come back to me. I emailed them 3 times, no reply. And then when I looked on their profile, I could see that there was a lot of other high-end cars on there. Mercedes, BMW saloons, really prestigious cars, and looked like they were going for silly money. So I could see, I reckon this guy was a scammer. And what these people do is they ask you for a reasonable deposit up front of seeing the vehicle. You hand over deposit, you never hear from them again. And they can do this a number of different times with numbers of different people. And all them deposits add up. And there doesn't seem to be, at the moment anyway, of getting that money back or even getting these people arrested or, you know, prosecuted for these crimes. So it does seem to be very prevalent. So beware. Don't hand over any money until you've seen the vehicle for yourself and got the keys in your hand. It's absolutely critical. And then another example is we were actually scammed ourselves. And I looked at a vehicle on Auto Trader. It looked very good. The condition looked fine. The price was within my budget. So I contacted the seller. He emailed me back with a long story. Basically, he said he was in the armed forces. He was being posted abroad. Perfectly legitimate in the current climate, and he needed to get rid of the vehicle fairly quickly, hence the price. And he could arrange for the vehicle to be transported to my address. Could I transfer him? I don't think it was the full amount, but at least, you know, a decent deposit. He would arrange for the vehicle to be transported to me, and then the balance, you know, I could do a bank transfer on the day of transfer. But you know, it just rang a few alarm bells with me. So again, one thing I did was I took a photograph of his advert of the vehicle and I did a reverse Google image search, which is one of these things you can do on Google. Just search Google image search. You can basically paste the image into Google and it will look for similar images on the internet. And sure enough, lo and behold, it cropped up on a forecourt of a garage being sold by a legitimate business. So all this guy's done is he's gone on their website, he's stole their photographs for their van and created a fake advert on Auto Trader. you know, and the vehicle wasn't even his. It was on a forecourt of a garage somewhere else in the country. And I managed to pass his details on to Auto Trader, and I also managed to pass his details on to the police. I'm not sure whether they followed it up, but at least I did my bit to hopefully get that guy out of the system so he couldn't do the same scam to other people. So be careful. You know, there are vehicles out there which may look really good, and sometimes the old adage is very true. You know, if it's too good to be true, invariably it is. So be careful when you're out there buying other vehicles. Okay, so where does that leave us with the budget build project? Well, I'm still looking. You know, I'm hoping that something will come up. But I think there may be some light at the end of the tunnel, because next September, obviously, when the next batch of vehicles come out onto the market, there will be an influx of second-hand vehicles come onto the market at that stage. So it might be a case that I might have to sit tight for a couple of months until those new vans are on the market, and then there's that influx of second-hand vans. I may be lucky and find something a bit better at that time. The only other thing I can maybe hope for is that somebody's got a vehicle that they want to sell and they don't want to capitalise on the current situation, and they're happy to let it go at a reasonable price. But I honestly can't see that at the moment. So anyway, that's the sad, unfortunate situation. It's definitely going to happen. I've got all the plans done. I've got all my budget sheet done. I will be doing some interesting stuff on the lead up to this build, because I'm actually got some software that I want to show you in terms of van design. You know, you've seen me do the 3D designs before on SketchUp. Well, now I have actually been able to import that 3D design into a VR headset, and now I'm actually able to walk around in that virtual van layout. Before I've even cut a bit of wood or screwed something into the van, I can walk around in that 3D design and test it out for myself virtually. So I've got a video coming up very soon where I'm going to be showing you that software and taking you on a virtual van tour of our new van. So yeah, look forward to that. Make sure that you're subscribed. Please do leave me a comment about any experience that you've had recently with van sales. Leave me a comment if there's a van on the market that you're aware of that I might be of interest in. I'm looking for a long wheelbase, high roof. Ideally, I want a square van, Ducato or Boxer, something of that nature. Ideally, the Ducato just seems to me to be a more reliable vehicle, maybe. A lot of the main manufacturers go for Ducato, so there must be a reason for that. So ideally, that's what I'm after. Anyway, enough of me waffling on. I hope you guys are all keeping well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.